they mutilate, they torture, they kill, 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 kill.
We are Spectremen, Spectremen, people with lots to kill, Spectremen.
Well, Stench and I were hanging out, and we started talking about, playing together. And, I was already friends with Penny Spectre and Howington. And we just all kind of, started getting together and talking about it and what we wanted to do. And that's how it all came about.
The journey began, I met Randy at the Winn-Dixie, and we actually, I think I worked with him for about a week, but we started hanging out, and then we were in a band called Captain Asparagus, and it kind of spawned maybe a couple months, and then when that was kind of falling apart, and then Dan started showing up, because Dan and Randy lived right across the street from each other, so we started kind of playing, and I thought I could play bass, but I wasn't very good. So they got a buddy of theirs, Josh, and I think that lasted about a month. And then I got a call from Randy, and I had actually moved to Augusta in that period of time, came back about a week, and I got a call from Randy saying, hey man, get your ass over. We're about to start something. And then about a month later, we went to the Misfits reunion, September of '97, if I'm not mistaken. And then that's when it started.
Oh. Well, the band began. Jesus, I can't remember these questions. I guess me and Dan, the Danner, were hanging out at my house in my parents' basement. That was a long, long time ago. And we were talking about starting a band. And we knew two other people who were wanting to start a band, Howie and Dave Courtney, and they were talking about starting a band, and so we ran into them at a show, and I guess that's where it all led to. Then I can't remember after that. I don't remember.
The band first started, we were coming around to Randy's basement, watching him play with some other people we went to high school with. And I had worked with Howie Spectre previously on various things. And I was working with Dan on some artwork. And we just decided to kind of combine all of our interests together in music, art, and movies, and try to make it a project. And so we went down, we were sitting out at Ruby Tuesdays, and that's where the band was formed.
Well, we played a couple house shows, which technically I guess you could say those were our first gigs. But our first real gig playing out was at the Old Dottie's. That was our first gig.
Yes, I believe it was at a buddy of Randy's, a guy named Keith, Punk Rock Keith, and it was a show in Beaufort.
Damn. No.
Gig number one, the first actual show was at somebody that Randy knew, I believe. It was at his house, and it was in it's kind of a side garage place to the house, kind of like and I just remember it being very rainy and very cold, and having to hold the equipment on the drive there, we had a tarp over all the equipment. I had my hand out the back window holding it shut. So when we got there to the show, my hand was frozen, and it was difficult to play that night.
It's going to be great.
Oh, it's awesome. Coming up every year, I look forward to it since I don't play very much anymore. It's always awesome to get together and see everybody that comes out of the woodwork once a year for all of us, the old school, old fuckers. So yes, it's awesome.
Shit, it's 20 years. I'm old. I'm freaking tired.
'20th anniversary, I think, is fantastic that everybody is still around to be able to do this and still has a drive to play music. And we're all still active in music. And so it's going to be a lot of fun getting up there and doing some songs that I haven't played in a really long time. And seeing the guys play the new songs, and it'll be fantastic.
In the 90s, I played in a couple different bands, some oi bands, some ska bands, that kind of thing. And I'd always gone and was involved in the scene. We would go see the Spectremen. It was one of the best bands in Atlanta to go see in the kind of late 90s punk scene. And I remember going to see them, and it was like it was like going to see the Misfits. Only it's like just the little Atlanta version of it. And I remember I was playing in a band called The Afflicted, and we'd played with the Spectremen before. And Danny came up to me. He was like, "Hey man, you want to play with us?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, that'd be awesome." And I remember one of our other friends, John Josephs, he had kind of asked him too, and I was kind of like, "Oh man, I hope John doesn't get it." And so I went and played with him. And I was 19 years old. It was 1999, and I remember going over and playing with them for the first time. I was just this kid, and I kind of looked up to them because they were a little bit older than me, and they had kind of played around and stuff. And so I went over there, and man, and I knew every song off that album. That 20 songs on the album that was only a 30-minute album. I mean, I knew them all. So it's like, man, we went in and that first practice over at Randy's house, it was just like, I was ready, man. I went in there and we just started knocking them out, and it's like, it just it kind of clicked from there, and we went on from there. I think that when I joined the band in '99, I think they already had so many songs, and such a wide range. I mean, we could play for hours. When we started writing new songs, I definitely had this whole just kind of rock and roll southern rock thing that's just kind of it's in my bones anyhow. And so I feel like some of that started to come through on the new stuff that we wrote. So I felt like it took a little bit of a shift more towards the rock and roll side in the way that we were writing music then. That's I enjoy playing it, and I think that was to me what I saw as the shift when I joined the band. 20th anniversary. I mean, that's super cool. I remember when a couple of years back when Dan reached out and was like, "Hey man, y'all want to start doing some reunion shows?" I think that was at 16 or 17 years or something. Just the fact that we're all still hanging out, we're still somewhat connected and in the scene, and being able to still have people come out and want to see us play after 20 years is pretty awesome. So I thank you guys for coming out and seeing us play and giving us a reason to still get together and have so much fun.
I knew the guys from around the club circuit back in the day. Would run into them at Dragon Con or whatnot and see them at gigs like that. And then their guitar player, who I thought was the original guitar player, Mickey, he had a motorcycle accident, and they did a benefit show for him at a club I worked. And so I did that, and that's, it's like, oh, that was fun, and then Mickey had gotten better, and I think the original plan was it'd be like 2 guitars, but something happened, and that didn't work out, so I just started playing guitar for him. I fucking destroyed them. I brought in the metal, definitely isolated their old crowd. And what's weird is, like, I was such a huge fan of the band, prior for even thinking about joining, but I thought I heard more out of them than what they were doing, and I thought maybe I could help them, do that, and I tried, and I think I just, destroyed their careers for them. Sorry. That's awesome that we're all still alive and we all get along, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. If you'd asked me if there would be a 25th or a 30th or 40th, whatever, fuck, I'll be dead, so probably not, So, I mean, it'll be a good time.
It is not.
I don't believe so. To my knowledge, I think Dan wrote it. I think me and Penny came up with the music, and then something about the netherworld of the abyss. But I don't know. But no, it's not about the haunted house.
It is not.
The song Netherworld is actually not about the haunted house in Atlanta. We came up with that song probably close to about the time that they first opened up, but it's really not based on that at all. It may have come from a comic book title, from what I remember. There was an independent comic book called Netherworld that I remember had at the time. And,
It is not.
No.
It is not.
No, it's fucking not.
It is not.
That's too fucking hot. Oh, that's more like it. You'd have to ask Dan about that one.
It is not.
How the band started. Penny and I were doing one band. Dan and Randy were doing something, a different band. Penny and I wanted Dan to come sing a few songs because neither one of us wanted to sing. And then at some point, I guess we were all talking, and we toyed around with the names, Spectremen, and it just kind of happened from there. Yes, it was March of 97, 98, for Dan's birthday at Dottie's. It's amazing. I'm super stoked that it lasted 20 years, that everybody's hung around for 20 years, and that seeing this thing from the beginning, it's pretty amazing that they're still around doing it for 20 years. No.